This is radio like you have never felt before. Life changes with FILIPO. And now, your host, FILIPO Voltaggio.
Ciao, everyone. I hope everybody has had a great week. Mine has been very exciting. It's exciting here at Life Changes with FILIPO. I keep saying that the show should be called Life Changes for FILIPO because it seems that, because my life is changing. Just this week, I had the opportunity of going to see one of our past guests, Dr. Ken Best, and he did some work on me. And on that very day, our current guest, Johnny Seitz, was available to meet with me and show me a little bit about what he does before we got on the radio together. And I saw him immediately after, and boy, I tell you, my head was spinning by the end of the day. He actually was born with the affliction of autism. And yet, this is amazing to me because we're talking about the stereotypical kind of autism, the withdrawn child, the rocking back and forth, the banging of the head against the wall or the bedpost, until basically he put a hole through it on more than one occasion. So he wanted minimal interaction with people and didn't know how to react with them when he did have interaction. But he was determined to be highly functional in our world, so to speak. He not only became highly functional, he became an accomplished professional ballet dancer. He became a professional mime and actually studied with Marcel Marceau. He became a martial artist, a lecturer, not only a life coach, but a teacher of life coaches, and an author. And he has authored the book, Biotyping Beyond Body Language. So as a way of coping, living in our, quote, normal world, he developed this biotyping, which is something that we'll talk about in a moment here. But the interesting thing is that he developed that to help him cope with us in our normal world. And yet now he's using that to help us, quote-unquote, normal people figure out our world. He will change the way we look at the way we literally move in our world. I welcome to the show Mr. Johnny Seitz.
Hey, FILIPO, it's good to be here with you.
It's good to be here with you, too. Let me have you move a little bit closer to the microphone. And I have to tell everybody that I walked into Johnny's office, and the first thing he does is he gave me a hug, and then he said, "Walk for me." And I thought that was a little bit odd, but I did. I walked for him, and he said, "You were raised this way, and you think this way, and you do things this way." And I said, "Wow, how could you know that just from my walking?" And then he says, "Now sit on the floor and stand for me." And I did. And then he told me even more things. And he had names for the way I stood up and the way I walked. And is this the biotyping thing that we're going to get into in a little bit?
Yes, it is. I didn't really realize that it was a thing. When I was writing the book, I was talking about what I see when I look at people. And I said something to my wife about, well, you're a railroad person, so naturally you'd look at it that way. And she said, "What do you mean a railroad person?"
A railroad person?
Yeah.
Railroad.
I'm face blind, so I don't remember people. I've been in the room with two, what I'm told, are absolutely identical twins, and I saw no resemblance. So when I would meet people as a child, and today at 59 years old, I can't tell faces apart. I'm constantly meeting people, and they're saying, "Hey, Johnny, how you doing?" I'm fine. Who are you? I'm a student of yours. Oh, right. So being born face blind, the part of my brain that should look at faces and remember them doesn't. Most people can hold 2 million faces in that place in their brain forever. I look at a movie and my wife wants to kick me because honey, is that the wife or the daughter? It's the daughter. Shut up.
You know, Johnny, I'm laughing, and it's so good to be able to laugh with you here because you have such an approach to all of this. I mean, as a child, I know from what you've shared, what I've read, that this wasn't the easiest thing to deal with. And it's still not. And yet you have completely turned it around to where in talking to you, it almost feels like we're the ones that are not normal.
Well, it's kind of tough when you're born there's a book called A Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein, and this child grows up on another planet and he's never met a human being, but he looks like one, so everyone assumes he is a human being, and they do things like laugh, and he doesn't understand what's wrong with them. I've always felt like a stranger in a strange land. I've got the same everything that you do, except my head sees absolutely a different world. My mind processes things in a totally different way. I miss all kinds of social cues, so you'll be tapping your foot and pointing at your wristwatch, and I'll be chatting away. But I can't block out the pain I see in your heart. I can't block out the anger I see in your legs. I can't block out the fact that you desperately need to be touched. And I'm like an animal in that I see the energy, just not the clothes, the face, and the hair. And I had to learn a whole different way of interacting with people so they first didn't get mad at me. And I was a very irritating child.
But not by intention, that's the thing.
No.
Because you spoke in a way that was different. You understood the world in a way that was different than everybody else.
I see things differently. There's another autistic woman I get to lecture with sometimes named Temple Grandin.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote a book called, what the dickens was the name of that book, honey?
Animals
in Translation.
Right, because she works with cows. And when he says honey, he wasn't talking to me. He was he was talking to his wife, who's also in the room, and that is Chris, and we're happy to have her here as well. So back to Templeton Grandin.
Temple was a classic autistic child like me. She was we both should have been locked up, but most classic autistic kids, or a lot of them, do get institutionalized. Now,
you don't mean that you should have been. And under normal circumstances, quote-unquote normal, a child like you would have been.
Chris could probably give you the statistics on it, but an awful lot of children who bang their heads, go downstairs and break every dish in the kitchen at night, who throw themselves violently against walls, tend to get a bad reputation, and people have a hard time figuring out what to do with them.
Well, before we go on, why do you think you were doing that? I mean, is that autism that makes you do something another child wouldn't, or?
I always felt that it rounded out the hard edges in life. Smacking my head against a wall or pounding against a chair held me in, contained me, made me feel safe. I mean, at 59, I still sleep with a 40-pound heavy blanket to make me feel safe. I wear tight belts. Autistic people don't like to be in crowds because we pick up way too much information. They say that autistic people don't feel. They say that we lack empathy. It's not that I have no feelings. I have too many, and I don't know what to deal with them, how to process them, how to. Neurotypicals are sit there talking like nothing is going on, and I'm seeing the rage in someone's brain. I'm seeing the sadness in someone's heart, and they're talking about the weather, and I'm like, wait, there's something else going on, or I'll see things that others miss. Imagine a child, sweet little kid, looks normal, and says, "Father Ed, why do you want to touch my booty? You little rat, what the heck are you talking?" And then Father Ed gets moved to another parish because he did touch somebody's booty. I would see these things, and I couldn't ignore them. And when I would talk about them, people got mad. People didn't want to hear it. People didn't want me around.
And when you say you would see them, you wouldn't actually see it physically happening, that you could just sense that this was...
I could see the bodies. At one time, I was talking about what I do with a group of people, and a guy comes up, "What do you see? What do you see when you look at me?" And after saying, "I hate it when people do this, but you carry a gun on your right hip and you miss it," and he said, "God, how'd you know that? I'm an off-duty cop." I said, "Because your hand has got this unnecessary tension that's kind of hovering around that part of your body. I can't tune that out. Because I miss the faces that everyone else stares at, I see the neuromusculature in the body." And we don't like the term idiot savant, but I do have a little bit of a savant thing that I can literally see every muscle and bone in a person's body, which ones are moving, which ones are blocked, which ones are packing extra energy, which ones are having no feeling whatsoever. I teach at a college of psychology because my wife, when she was getting her master's in psychology, they were talking about autism, and they said, autism is this. And my wife said, "Oh, I'm married to an autistic man." And they said, "Could you bring it in? We'd like to see one."
Oh, no.
And it's called a pervasive developmental delay, or retarded development, or retard. And they took me to a hypnosis class where the teacher put each student into a trance, and then he would let the different students, while the person was in a trance, ask questions. And I'd look at him when it got to be my turn, and I'd say, "What is it about your left hand and your brother's death?" And the guy would break open like a watermelon and start crying, and the guy would say, "How do you do that?" And I'm like, "How could you miss it?" He's screaming at me so loud I can't see anything else, and all you see is the shirt he's wearing and the expression on his face. But since I can't see the expression, all I'm left with is all I can't hide from.
Now when Johnny was trying to explain this to me in his studio, I came up with this analogy that worked for me, and I think women would relate to this even more than most men. But sometimes, like, you'll say to a woman, or I hear men say to a woman, "Why do you think that guy's cute?" or something like that. And according to all rules of society, that man would be good looking. But to a lot of women, the answer was no. And he'd, you'd hear my friends or whatever, even me say, "Why is he not good looking?" Well, because he looks like he's a womanizer, or he looks like he,
has sharp edges that make me feel unsafe.
Right. So the woman isn't just looking at the physical beauty. She's not looking at just the face. She's looking at what's behind the eyes, or what kind of a provider would he be? What kind of a lover would he be? Where the men, most men, we might, say, "Oh, I want that," and it's more of a face value kind of thing. So you see somebody, and you take it many steps further. You see way beyond all of the physical.
If you think that a woman is by nature smaller, less able to protect themselves, less mass, and more vulnerable, quadruple that, and you've got me. I feel so. In New York, we walked down the street, and I said, "Chris, I can't take this. The depression on the street is too heavy. I can't handle this." Or going out in a crowd, I'm just overloaded by what I pick up, and it's just a pure gift of the universe that I found a place where this gift is not a curse. It's actually something useful and wonderful that I can do with people.
Right.
Thank God.
And before you go into that, you mentioned Temple Grandin. I just wanted to know what the connection you wanted to make with.
Oh, Temple designed more than 80% of the cattle handling facilities in the entire world because she understands cows better than anyone alive. She knows what they feel, what makes them comfortable, what makes them feel unsafe. I understand neurotypicals, is what I call you guys, human beings better than you guys understand yourself. Possibly because I'm on the outside trying to figure out how to safely interact in your world. I have a piece that called "God Does Not Make Garbage," which is on the internet now. And my wife and I do it at autism conferences all over the world. And it starts out with me on a tightrope. And
is that the mind piece that I saw? Oh, okay, right.
My feeling of my whole life is that I live in this lockup in the top of a castle, and I'm allowed down where the people are eating and talking until I screw up, and then I'm locked back up again. And I feel like I spend my whole life trying not to mess up, not to say the wrong thing, not to just plain get in trouble and get put aside and yelled at again. And I spent so many years trying to figure out how to navigate neurotypical waters, being with people and not saying things that no one else would say it. It's obvious as heck, but no one's acknowledging it, or not saying, to someone, "Yeah, nice body." You don't say that. Oh, what do you say? "Lovely hair." And I'm like, why are you lying? And to me, neurotypicals are constantly afraid to be who they are, and afraid to show what they're feeling and what they're scared. And since that's all I see, and they come to my studio and I say, "It's okay, don't feel sad. I can see it in your," and they're like, "Oh my God, you see it?" Yeah, kind of loudly, and it makes it okay for them.
So basically, are you saying that your quote unquote affliction is, maybe there are other things involved, but if we were without inhibition, Okay, you're getting
nicer
excited
world.
about that. Okay, it'd be a nicer world. Okay, so if we were without inhibition and without fear of saying the wrong thing, and if we were present at all times, then we would be like you.
Let me put it this way. If you stop right now and listen to your head, I'm told everybody has a committee in their head. Mom's saying, dude, look at your hair. You can't, your boss, your father. My head's dead silent. I have no sound, no voices in my head whatsoever. They've actually hooked me up to biofeedback machines, and all my brainwaves live entirely in theta.
And now theta is where we like to take ourselves by going into meditation. And so this is you're always in a meditative state then.
I guess you call it that. To me, it's the only place I've ever lived, so I have no sense of time. Tomorrow and 10 years ago, or yesterday and 10 years ago are exactly identical to me. I have no sense of time. I have no sense of... I get lost on my way home as often as not. But I see people with the intensity of somebody with the first night with a new lover, or in a death match against an opponent. I see with that intensity and that immediacy, and there are no judgments, no voices, no things going on in my head except you and what you're feeling, and me listening and being, and either being scared and wanting to make it safe, or me wanting to say, it's okay, you can let that tension go. And I guess my work is that the savant part of me understands the physiology of the human body, to the point where I teach doctors, I teach psychotherapists. I'm actually on the faculty of that college of psychotherapy where they wanted to look at it.
Interesting.
Teaching psychotherapists to see what I see, and teaching them how to prepare the body to handle what's hidden from them. So if it's in your subconscious you've got a trauma that's unresolved, I see the trauma, and instead of addressing the trauma, I address how would the body have to prepare the core to feel safe enough and strong enough to handle a big heavy weight, or handle dealing with a physical object. And when the body learns that, all of a sudden the psychic wraps itself around the ability to feel okay to let it come up. I work with stroke survivors.
Right. Actually, before we get into the actual, because that's a whole nother, that's great actually, and we want to get into that. But before we do, do you think you've learned this because you're autistic, or because of all the things that you've done, the ballet, the miming, the coping mechanisms that you've had to create? I mean, not all people that are afflicted with autism know this, correct?
Well, no, but think of it this way. I'm writing a second book that's about getting in touch with the resources that the human body has. You take a normal child, you throw him a ball, he catches it and throws it back, and it becomes an interactive conversation. You throw a ball to an autistic kid, he takes the ball and leaves the room, thank you. It doesn't occur to the autistic child to interact with the person that threw the ball. I had to learn games, I had to learn physical interactions, emotional interactions, step by laborious step. So I learned it a whole lot better than most people. I'm a professional ballet dancer, but it took me 3 times as long as anybody else to learn the choreography. But by the time I got it, I understood much more about it than the person teaching it knew they were teaching.
You know, this is interesting, actually fascinating to me, because I studied opera. And so I went through many teachers, opera teachers, to help me. And I remember going to a very famous teacher who was a famous singer and a famous teacher and used to teach at one of the big universities. And she charged a lot of money, and she only accepted a handful of students every year, and she accepted me. But a few months after having accepted me, she threw me out. She said, "You've got a beautiful voice, but you will never learn how to sing." And the interesting thing is that she was, well, before I say that, then immediately after her, I found a man who didn't have a good voice, who was not a famous singer, but was a well-known teacher in Hollywood. And I went to him, and he started teaching me how to sing. And what I came to learn is that the previous teacher, she became famous as a singer. She was born with the natural ability to sing. She had no idea how to teach someone who didn't or wasn't born with that. And the other teacher couldn't sing very well, but he had to work hard at every note that he was able to finally sing someday. And he was able to teach me how to be able to sing and bring out what I naturally had. And here you are. You are like him.
I had to work a whole lot harder
to learn how to be human, so to speak.
To learn how to look like a human being and to operate in the world of human beings and accept the fact that I would never be like others, but that what I had turned out to be a gift that could help others.
And so now you are helping us saying, I know what you're trying to do, and that's not the way you do it. This is the way.
Well, most of what I do, I'll put people on an unstable platform.
Like you did me.
Like I did you.
And I fell off.
And then I say, no, don't you know you've got this? Push your legs this way, do that, and all of a sudden there you are. Hey, this is easy. Most of what I do is so elementary that people disregard it as, I often say, how do you make a soldier out of a raw recruit in 6 weeks flat? And everyone says, oh, you break him into small. No. As soon as you make a restricted exhalation, the transverse abdominis, most external abdominal muscle in the body engages, and that kicks in 100 muscles up and down the spine called the multifidus. And when that happens, the spine suddenly feels strong and ready to handle. Soldier doesn't say, okay, listen, I'm going to yell at you, and you yell back, sir, yes, sir. But that's basically how they initiate those muscles to kicking in. And people forget that when they get scared or mad, they make a s or a f sound. Think of your favorite four-letter expurlative. And it's exactly the same as, sir, yes, sir, in the engagement of those muscles. So with a stroke survivor, I'll tell somebody, go, shh, and you add your own last two letters, and they're on their feet saying, how'd that happen? And I said, your legs always had the strength. Your spine turned off that strength because it was afraid of getting hurt. But the second your spine felt able to handle it, boom, you're standing. If you have a trauma, a PTSD situation in your past, if you can't face it, your mind denies that it exists. But the second the core physically remembers that it's strong and can handle the stress, then all of a sudden your mind remembers it and is able to process it. I teach therapists how to prepare the body. I think, why did God give you a body that starts out beautiful, young, strong, great eyesight, great hearing, and then over the next 50, 60 years takes away your sight, takes away your strength, takes away your hearing? I tell people it's because our bodies are like a book. We've got a date tattooed on the inside of our left butt cheek. We can't read it, but it's the due date when the book is due back at the big library. And it has all these great lessons to teach us before we are done with it, so that by the time our eyes don't work so good anymore, we learn to really see other people. When our ears don't work so good, we learn to really listen. And the modalities for handling stress first get discovered physically in play, in climbing things, in childhood, and then they enable the body to feel safe enough to handle stress, and the mind says, wow, let me try that. And, for example, if you lock your knees, you cannot have authority in your voice with your knees bent. And the second you lock your knees, something happens both to you and your feeling of groundedness and in the person you're talking to. They respond instinctively and say, how'd that happen? I discovered this. I was a personal trainer teaching people how to handle physical weight, stress, and how to find balance. And their lives started to shift, and they said, what did you do to me? He says, I don't know. I taught you how to do this, and your body got it, but it seems like your body took it and applied it to your life. And as I watched it happen, I became aware that you teach the body how to handle stress and how to find balance, and immediately the mind and the consciousness apply that, and it starts to shift your whole life. So in my studio, all I do is give people physical challenges. Okay, soldier, I'm going to yell and scream at you. You yell back, sir, yes, sir, at me. And at the end of 6 weeks, the soldier's like, sir, are you done yelling? Because I'm sick of listening. Sir! I give a challenge, and like I did with you on that earthquake, that unstable surface, a suggestion. Your body says, okay, I got it. And like a soldier says, we're grunts, we can take it. Your body says, oh, wait, I can do this. Hey, let's try something tougher. I'm good at this. And so it's redefining the experience of being you on the most primal level. You could go to a psychotherapist. And I always, at the college, I'll say, what do you call a man who hates women? Oh, misogynist. What do you call a woman who hates men? There is no word. So I'm going to go to talk therapy that doesn't have words for a lot of the feelings that are hurting me. I go straight to the body from before there were words and teach the body to handle stress, to re-identify as being good at having balance, and all of a sudden that transfers into people's lives. And it may have taken me 3 times as long as it took you to learn these lessons, but now I can see how to help people experience them in their own body, and their life just follows.
It's fascinating what you can do, and you've had so much success with so many people with various illnesses, not just the people that want to change their life, but the people that have no choice. Like you were on the cover of Stroke Connection magazine, A Man with a Gift, How Johnny Seitz Special Abilities Helped Dick Clark Recover, and you're still working with him. I know you worked with him today. What is it that what's the first thing you start everybody off with?
With a stroke survivor, generally you're looking at one hemisphere of the brain crashed. The left hemisphere affects the right side of the body. The left hemisphere also deals with swallowing, speech, and other things. Or if it's a right hemisphere stroke, it affects the left side of the body. So one of the first things I work with is unilateral adduction, the ability to pull the thighs together, and finding what muscles are not firing and what compensation mechanisms the body is using to just be able to stand, to just be able to walk. And because I understand the physiology of what has to happen to make a person able to, I start with the core, and with the like the military sound, I get the core to stabilize itself so that it can feel confident to let the power of the legs kick in, and then I work at getting the right neuroimpulse to the body part, so that, most people when they approach stroke, they say, okay, lift your leg, advance your foot, put your weight down. And I don't say that. I give a person instead of, I'll tell somebody, lift your leg, and they'll say, I can't, I had a stroke, idiot. And I'll put my chin above their knee, and I'll be real obnoxious, and I say, wouldn't you like to rot in a kisser? And boom, up comes the knee, and they say, how the heck did you do that? I gave your mind a picture. It figured out what to use, what resources were available. It did it. The body to survive will do phenomenal things. I just help the body to remember.
So basically, you reminded me of a phrase when you say somebody has no spine.
Uh-huh.
And that's the core that you're talking about. And what you're doing is you're helping build that spine, build that core.
Everybody has a spine, but an awful lot of people have not learned that by innervating certain muscles, they can handle. It's a very common experience that I take people who I'll put my hand on their chest and I'll push and they'll roll backwards and say, whoa. And I'll say, do it again, but go, and I'll push and they're solid as a rock. And they say, how the heck did that happen? What did you do? Now, I can explain in detail the mechanics involved, but who cares? Nobody, once they discover a muscle, is going to turn it off and forget it. They're going to say, hey, let me try this again at home. Hey, I like this. And pretty soon they start applying it in every area of their lives. And it's a self-evolving thing. It's amazing how many people can't walk on one foot, staying on one foot, and then the other foot. They don't realize that they're in a constant state of shambling or stumbling from foot to foot. And I get them standing on one foot on an unstable platform saying, oh my God, this is good. I like this. I can handle this. Let me try something harder. And pretty soon, they're the ones who are directing the course of study, not me.
See, so
it's all in. It's like ragu spaghetti sauce. It's in there.
It's in there, and that's what I'm getting at. Is that there are people that have no spine. There are people that have.
Well, they have a spine.
They have a spine.
They just lack the neuromusculature to stabilize it in the face of stress.
And I mean it figuratively, absolutely, like you're saying. And then people that don't have a strong footing, people that can't stand on their feet. So this is what you're talking about. That aren't walking on solid ground. This is
psychologically. If somebody has, as a child, always felt the earth was going to give out from under them, that something happened and they went to their parents said it didn't happen, now stop it. They carry that experience into everything they do, expecting the earth to not be stable. And there's something called the mirror neuron, where the muscles, to prepare them to fall, engage, and guess what? Their body is already taking them off of a stable platform because they anticipate it not being stable. We manifest outside of ourselves what we expect. I work with a lot of doctors. I do a master class for practitioners, and I say we don't believe what we see. We see what we believe. Looking at a client or looking at a situation, if we believe that we can't trust the earth, we'll prove it.
So you, in the book Biotyping, you've identified 3 types of people. And tell us what they are,
Okay, first one is a backward faller, but I call it railroad person.
Okay, so a backward faller you call a railroad person. Okay,
because they proceed step by step, pulling themselves toward a goal. Then there's a forward faller like me, who's constantly just falling forward, and a foot keeps showing up. So when I went to my wife and I said, "Hey, let's build this tower in the jungle, like 60 feet high, so we can see the river," and she says, "Where are you going to get the wood?" "You don't like my idea." "Yeah, I do." "Where are you going to get the money?" "You hate my idea." No, that's how she thinks, step by step. Me, I just charge in bars and figure from my experience of a foot always showing up that I'll find the wood. But to learn to communicate with her, I had to learn her language.
Is there? But
the third one
is it in the middle? The third one is in the middle.
The third one is David Letterman, Jay Leno, Bill Clinton. They're children who got to their feet under duress. Think of kids in the barrio standing with their feet really wide. "You're not pushing me over, buddy." These are kids who grew up feeling like they had to fight, and Bill Clinton had an alcoholic mother. People who felt we respond to our environment as children. The body's only got so many possible ways to get to your feet, and we choose the one that's most consistent with how we see ourselves in life. And I found that there are only 3, and everyone in the world. I've been in the deepest jungles in Peru and seen one torso sway walker, one backward faller, and one forward faller walking naked with some dead monkeys they had just hunted. It's the world over. There are only so many ways to get to your feet, and everybody in the world falls into one of them. And there's a bio-personality, as in how you approach and handle problems, and there's a biopsychology, because how you do it with your body becomes how you do it with your mind and your emotions. And when I was able to extrapolate which person I was talking to, I could change to their language. And no one's ever noticed this before. We go to an exercise class, and 12 people are doing sit-ups, bending from a different place, one from the waist, one from the hips, and nobody notices it. I see it, and I realize that they're different body types. So I'm able to say, "Okay, try this." And all of a sudden, oh my God, that worked. Because I know what their body needs to do to be able to handle any given challenge.
And it does seem to work by all the testimonials and all the people that I know that have experienced you. And actually, you come to us through our friend Janet Bogumian. So we're really happy that she brought you to us. And I am going to come and experience more of what you do. Yeah. I will, and I look forward to it. But in the meantime, for people that don't know and want to know more about you, how do they find you? You're on the internet now.
You can go to biotyping.com, BIOTYPING. And there's bunches and bunches of stuff. They can YouTube The Stroke Whisperer and see me working with stroke survivors. They can also, on YouTube, look up God Does Not Make Garbage, which is the mime performance that my wife and I do at autism conferences.
Right. And is that on your website at biotyping.com?
Not yet, because I'm not smart enough to change my web.
I think you're plenty smart. Biotyping.com, BIOTYPING.com.
Or just Google Johnny Seitz and you'll get more than you want.
Did you want me to give the number here?
Sure.
Because you have a studio called Access Evolving, which is a great name. 310-714-5222. Johnny, when you said that when I was at the studio, I might have been looking at my watch or tapping my feet ready to go, and you wouldn't have noticed it, but I can assure you I wasn't doing that. And both of us did have an appointment right after, though, so we did end up having to cut our time short. And just like here again, we have to cut our time about now because we have some other segments to do before the end of the show. But I could listen to you and play with you for hours. And I say play because not only are you fun, but you literally have what you call toys. I mean, they're tools, but your studio is full of what you call toys. Mm-hmm. And it certainly looks fun in there, so I can't wait to come and play with you.
Get ready to redefine yourself as someone who lives for stress because it's fun.
Oh.
And you're good at it.
Oh.
And who can balance phenomenally in every area of your life, because it's why the universe gave us a body to learn from. So read the darn book before you give it back to the big library.
Okay, well, actually, the book came from you, not the library, so can I keep it until I finish reading it?
Yep.
And, Johnny, Thank you so much. You know, actually, I see your name spelled two different ways in too many.
They misspelled it on the cover of one of the magazines. It's Seitz.
Okay, so it is Seitz.
Seitz.
Okay, I was pronouncing it correctly. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, Johnny Seitz, thank you so much for being with us on the show. We'll stay a few minutes afterwards so that we can take pictures before you go, and I'd like to get to know your wife a little better as well. So thank you, Johnny.
Thank you.